Hello, I am back randomly because I randomly wanted to make a video about God of War. And I have all of the games here. We have God of War 3, here's God of War Origins Collection. These are the PSP games that released Chains of Olympus, the more obscure one, which we're going to spend a lot of this video talking about. And of course, the more popular Ghost of Sparta, which is an incredible game for the PSP. It's an incredible game. For one of the best looking games on the PSP, and both of them have been remastered and look so much better on the PlayStation 3. And then, of course, we have the stinker of the bunch. We have God of War Ascension. I actually liked this game for the gameplay, mainly because if you've played one Greek-era God of War game, you've played them all. Because especially where the Blades of Chaos are concerned, the combos are the exact same pretty much for everything. You know, you press square, and triangle, I believe. You could do the Plume of Prometheus. This combo exists in all 6 of the Greek-era God of War games, and there are 6, okay? And this is my disc-only copy here. Here's God of War, the collection. This has the first 2 God of War games in here. I just didn't feel like digging out my PS2 copies. So we have God of War 1 and 2. We have God of War Ascension. We have Ghosts of Sparta and Chains of Olympus, and we have God of War 3. If you're ever wondering the chronological order to play these games in, you're going to want to play Ascension first. Even though plot-wise you may not pick up a lot of story in Ascension. So you're probably going to want to start with the first God of War for PS2, if you want to do it that way, to get the Kratos story first. And especially it's the most aged of the bunch. But I usually start with this one because I've played and replayed these games way too many times. So I know this story by heart, and I usually revisit this series every few years or so. So you start with Ascension, and then you come in here and you play Chains of Olympus. Chains of Olympus takes place almost immediately right before God of War 1 for the PlayStation 2. So you're going to want to play Chains of Olympus, then God of War 1. And then you're going to pulp this out, and you're going to pulp this back in, and you're going to play Ghosts of Sparta, because Ghosts of Sparta takes place in between 1 and 2. And then you're going to pulp this back in, and you're going to play God of War 2. Then once you're done with that, then you get to play God of War 3. God of War 3 is the best of the bunch in my personal opinion, because it is the definitive experience. Even though this was the latest and last of the Greek-era God of War games, this one looks better, in my opinion. This one plays better, it has better weapons, it's a better story. It's just the definitive Kratos experience, especially if you're going to play the Greek-era games. This one is very story-heavy. It is reliant on you playing God of War 1 and 2 at the very least. But I would recommend that you play the PSP games, because there's something that I wanted to bring up, that I was thinking about after watching a review on the Norse god, the latest Norse God of War Ragnarok game, and the Atreus kid, and it got me thinking once again. Yeah, I was pretty vocal about not really caring for the PS4 God of War title, and that you should have taken Kratos and anything Kratos related out of that game and just made it your own Norse God of War title. It's a spin-off series, if you will, and that would have been fine, in my opinion. But if you want Dad of Boy, that's fine with me. It's not, I don't want to take that away from you. I personally didn't care for it. I didn't. And it's mainly to do with what I want to bring up in this video. Chains of Olympus, it has an interesting plot point that makes me wonder why they never revisited this. In Chains of Olympus, Kratos has to go into Hades. Now, for confusion's sake, Hades, the realm of the dead, is the same name as Hades, the god of the dead. There's two Hadeses. So when I'm saying Hades and Hades and Hades over and over again, when I'm talking about this game, I'm going to be talking about Hades, the realm, because Hades, the god, only shows up in God of War 3. So if I'm pointing here, I'm probably talking about the god. If I'm pointing here, I'm talking about the land of the dead. So Kratos ends up going to Hades in order to rescue the sun god who has been kidnapped by Persephone and Atlas, the titan who is holding up the world. Persephone is the wife of Hades, and she doesn't want to be his wife. She was tricked by Hades into being his wife. She is trapped in Hades, and she wants to escape the realm of the dead and return to Demeter, her mother. If you know the story of Persephone and Demeter, then I don't want to repeat this story for you. But for those of you who do not know the story of Persephone and Demeter, it is basically the story of the seasons. When Hades takes Persephone down to his realm of Hades, Demeter becomes depressed. Demeter is the god of the plants and all that other stuff, the goddess of all that stuff. And there's multiple gods for multiple roles and all that stuff. But in this specific story, when Demeter becomes depressed, plant life and everything gets cold and winter comes. And then when Persephone escapes Hades to return to her mother, Demeter is no longer depressed and we get spring and summer. It's essentially the story of the 4 seasons. So Persephone wants to escape this contract and return to her mother permanently, and the only way she thinks she could do this is by destroying Hades. And the gods don't want this, and Kratos eventually doesn't want this once he learns that Elysium, which is basically the Greek era version of heaven, essentially. Elysium is in Hades. You could visit Elysium, it's like right next door to Hades or whatever. So Kratos goes to Elysium during this game, and in Elysium he finds Calliope. Now, in the very first God of War game, Kratos was killed by Ares. He fell into Hades. He was able to just crawl back out of sheer spite. So I doubt there are too many rules preventing Kratos from taking Calliope out of Elysium and taking her back to the realm of the living with him. Since she is his daughter, she has god blood in her. Because, Kratos is the son of Zeus. He's a demigod, so she's also 1/4 god. So I bet she could break those rules as well. And, in God of War 3, Kratos ends up killing Hades, the god of the dead, and he ends up taking Hades' soul. And I don't know if the soul has been sucked into the claws of Hades, or if the soul has been absorbed by Kratos himself, and essentially making him a full god instead of a half god. It's mostly a gameplay element thing so that you could progress into Olympus, because there's a portal that Kratos cannot pass in Hades because you need the soul of a god. And so Kratos goes and kills Hades to get that. But Elysium is still there. It's like right next door to Hades as of this game's lore. So making me wonder, after Kratos deals with everybody in this story, Zeus is gone and all that stuff, Hades is gone, there's no warden in Hades preventing him from just waltzing right into Elysium, taking his daughter with him, and going back to the surface world to have her live a full life. There's nothing stopping him from doing this. And canonically, plot-wise, according to this character, this Kratos, to me, in my perspective of learning about this character over the course of these 6 games, especially in Chains of Olympus, Kratos would stop at nothing to get to his daughter. And he would also sacrifice her if it meant to keep her safe. When Kratos reunites with Calliope, his daughter, he ends up being tricked by Persephone. Persephone had to keep Kratos busy with Calliope so that she can enact her plan with Atlas and bring the realm of the living crashing down upon Hades, destroying both Hades and Elysium. And Kratos can't allow that to happen because his daughter is here. So to save her, he has to part ways with her again. And he doesn't know if he'll ever be able to return to Elysium. Well, this is God of War, and this is Kratos. He breaks rules constantly. He bends. He's broken rules in the first God of War game. He dies. Well, he found that disagreeable, and he clawed his way back out. There's nothing stopping him from going down there and getting her. But I guess the writers of the reboot, maybe they didn't think about that. Maybe they didn't remember Chains of Olympus. Maybe they weren't even people who worked on Chains of Olympus. Who knows? But I just thought about that myself and wondered, they could still do that. They could still bring Calliope back. Because, she is one quarter god. And I doubt Kratos' wife could ever come back. But Calliope, she probably can.